Hello and welcome back to the Voices of Social Work podcast. I am Anna, a licensed social worker interviewing social workers, and I'm so excited for you to listen to this interview today. In this episode, I'm joined by Regine, also known as Let's Unpack That on Instagram. Regine is an MSW graduate who is now pursuing a fellowship in individual therapy, individual counseling, working at a university with college students. She also shares some insights about being a baby social worker, new to the field, but this is a really good one, so I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Regine. Welcome to the Voices of Social Work podcast. Would you just introduce yourself, kind of who you are and what you're up to at the moment?
My name is Regine. I recently graduated with my MSW in March, and I'm currently a fellow at a college counseling center.
That's awesome. So I feel like we don't hear too often about people doing fellowships after their MSW. Like it's not everyone's typical journey. So could you talk a little bit about what that is and also kind of how you decided that that's what you wanted to do?
So a fellowship, at least in the sense of what I do, basically, after getting your degree, you go into kind of more learning, but you get paid for it. So that's kind of cool. We have supervisors who support us with seeing clients at the counseling center at the university. We also have like seminars where we learn different theories or different clinical issues. That's what I set out to do. Like when I first applied and said I wanted to go get my degree in social work, I was looking at like, what am I going to do with this? How do I get these hours? How many 3,000? That's wild. So I looked into what to do, and a fellowship really resonated with me. I wanted to work with young adults. 18 to 24 is what I did at my internship, and relatively the age range I work with now. So it kind of was just like a perfect fit. So I was applying to multiple ones. I sent out applications to different cities, and ultimately picked the city that I'm in. So mostly because I wanted to work with people of color, and some of the other cities that accepted me, their population for like people of color was really, really low. And I was like, I don't know. And I also don't know if I want to do a whole new city right now. So yeah, that's how we landed on that. It's been really, really amazing.
That's cool because it is such a big gap, I feel like, between classes in grad school and you're like, okay, I'm hearing about the theories, I'm hearing about like how social work started, and then actually like sitting yourself face to face in front of a real person that's coming for like real counseling. And you're like, what am I doing? So it is
Really.
cool that it's like to kind of wrap around and support as you get started. So you mentioned that this was like something you set out to do and that you want to do therapy in the young adults. How did you decide like on social work?
So I graduated with my undergrad from Georgia State in 2016. So there was a pretty big gap between what I wanted to do. My undergrad degree is in journalism. So,
Okay.
okay. So I spent years like just kind of getting into the field. Then I was like, I like TV and film. It was journalism minor in TV and film. And it was just really not what I wanted. I thought I wanted it. I was 18, who thought I was 18 and could decide what I was going to do with for the rest of my life. Um, I'm 29 now, and who's to say this is what I'm going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had no clue. So I kind of took some years off. I was serving, hated that. Made good money, but it wasn't the best.
Mhm.
Um, and just kind of feeling really, really lost. So then in 2020, the pandemic really, really set in some like, what am I doing with my life? What's next? This all can end in any time. You know what I mean? It was very much that. So I was kind of talking with friends and my partner, and they were like, "You're really good at like just like sitting with people when they're experiencing emotions and like um, just supporting them in a way that I don't necessarily get with other people." And I was like, okay, that's interesting. What could I do with that? So I looked into it and I was like, I'm not going back for undergrad because I was like, I can't, like, I thought it was the only way to be a therapist was like psychology. Like,
Mhm.
I really didn't know social work or getting a licensed counselor or a marriage and family therapist. I didn't know those things. So with research and 2020, so having more time on my hands, I was able to like find social work, and then started applying to places. I took an online program, which most of us did in 2020,
Yes, I
2021.
did as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it. I just had friends point out, like, here's some things that you're good at, and let's see if we can apply it. So yeah, it's been cool since then.
Yeah, no. And it's cool hearing you like articulate your journey from 18, like in your young adulthood, being that that's who you want to work with now. Because I'm sure that your experience can also inform the way that you sit with people whenever you are doing counseling now. It's cool to see how all that ends up connecting, even though I'm sure in the moment it was like, oh no, what is going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, for sure. When people ask why that age group, I'm always like, I feel like 18 to 24 is such an impressionable year. Like, I know when you're a child, you're very impressionable, but 18 to 24, you're kind of like leaving your house and you're figuring out that maybe your parents weren't always right about certain things, or some of the things that they taught you might have been harmful or beautiful and amazing. And you want to cultivate that in your new college space and how to do that, or how to do that in your adult life. So I felt like that was a very life-changing age for me. And I think it's important to have some type of guidance with
Yeah.
that, because like I feel like my clients are always like, what am I doing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
same. Honestly, all of us are really figuring that out.
Right. And like, is it normal that I'm questioning all of this and thinking this way
Mm-hmm.
and reflecting back?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Talking about your like online MSW experience, what was that like getting your degree, even coming from undergrad that wasn't social work, like jumping into social work?
I will say with jumping into social work, it was probably one of the first times that I felt like, is this what like athletes feel like when they're good at something? Like I felt it was a match, like it
Yeah.
felt like, oh, this is what I'm good at this. And some of these skills come naturally to me that I didn't really think about. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. So it was really, really exciting to go through that and I guess be validated and like, okay, you're doing well, like you're getting good grades, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
Going online was interesting because I had an internship in person, but I don't feel like I did enough in-person counseling, like after. So it's interesting. I do acknowledge and see that there is a disconnect through Zoom sometimes that you miss, but I still really, I loved it because I would not be driving in traffic trying to get to class.
Yeah.
Like all my classes are at 5, like it just wouldn't have worked for me. So
Mhm.
the accessibility of it was amazing, and I had really, really good professors. It was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I really relate to that as far as like, yes, with online, you miss out on some of the community aspects of it because like talking
Mm-hmm.
over Zoom is so different than being present with people and like practicing those skills is different via the camera than
Yeah.
in real life, but also it does make it an accessible way to get a degree. What was your field placement that you were doing through that?
It was supporting young adults experiencing homelessness.
Okay.
So different, but still the same age group. And it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about systems, it taught me a
Yeah.
lot about finances as far as like the government has this much money that is allocated to you. It taught me about a lot of maybe practices that I don't like so much when it comes to the social work profession. And it also kind of taught me like how to stand up for myself with supervision and supervisors, and how to like, acknowledge the power dynamic, but make sure that you stand up for yourself because you're paying so much money. These student loans are starting back up this month. This is expensive.
Mhm.
So getting my money's worth, it taught me a lot. It wasn't the placement that I wanted, I'll say that, but it did teach me a lot.
Yeah. Hearing you talk about standing up for yourself and like the power differential of like you're an intern in social work, new, but also like us little social workers do have so many strengths. And I think sometimes those can get kind of glossed over. And so that's something I see you promote a lot on your Instagram is about like baby social workers and looking out for that like age group in a profession, I suppose, of the fact that like we have value, and also, yeah, whenever you're an intern, you're there to learn and it's important to have like a learning environment where you're supported to the best that you can.
For sure. I feel like sometimes baby social workers, when they come in, it's just like, well, you give them the hardest stuff. That's how you learn. And it's kind of like, I would like to bring into the space a new way of learning. Like, you
Yeah,
know, I don't, you don't have to throw me the hardest case for me to learn something. And if you are, can I get the best support possible? So
right.
advocating for yourself in that space, in the way that we advocate for clients, it's important to advocate for ourselves, for the education that we want, for the resources that we need. I think that's really important, which is why I'm all for pay these students for these internships. It's pay for pay placement. It's crazy.
Because you're working, like you are working.
Working, you might not have be able to work your job full time, or I was working full time and interning, and it's a really, really, really difficult time. Which is why I'm always advocating for like, yeah, pay for placement. Like we're not doing this for free. I get we're doing it to learn, but you know what makes learning better? Being able to survive, livable wages,
Right.
or getting food when you need it.
Being able
So
to make it. You're right.
mhm,
Exactly.
yeah, you can avoid the burnout. And because there's like, oh, there's so much burnout. But if we're not really focusing on the causes of the burnout, you can't just keep telling people to treat themselves. In the same way,
Right.
I'm
You
not going
can't
to tell my
self-care
client,
away burnout.
yeah, like I'm not going to tell my client, like, let's CBT this when it's a systematic issue, like you're oppressed. So I'm
You're
not,
thinking. It's like,
yeah,
oh,
like,
my thinking's right on this one.
right. So it's like, you guys say this, but we need to practice it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting.
As far as like advocating for yourself when you were a student and even being new in the field now, did you always have like your voice in that? Or did you have to kind of like, I don't know, hype yourself up, like learn how to advocate for yourself? And how would you, I guess, advise others who are struggling with that?
I did have to learn to find my voice. I will say, talking with other people, because I'm a person that sometimes sits on things because I try to figure out like, is this a me thing or is this the dynamic that we're having? Then once I sit on it a while and if I notice it's still bothering me, and impeding on our relationship. So if I don't have a good relationship with my supervisor, I'm not in the space to trust them with maybe the things that I don't feel like I did right in session or the things that I might have messed up in, and I'm losing that value. So I would have to hype myself up. I would have to like talk to my partner and be like, do you think, what do you feel like? How do you think I should say something? What do you
Can I
think?
practice this on you?
Yeah. And then it would just be, I had to really tell myself like, I'm doing this for me.
Mm.
And if the other person doesn't receive it well, and I do my best to, get the message across in a way that is calm and collected, if they don't receive it well, that's no longer my fault.
Mhm.
So I really have to give myself that grace, and I really have to sit on it at first, but hype yourself up a little bit and give yourself grace. So like for other folks that are dealing with that, I would say maybe talking it out with someone that's not necessarily your supervisor or even in the space, because I don't necessarily feel comfortable talking to like my cohort about certain things.
Mm.
But like I don't mind talking to my partner and seeing like, what's this? A microaggression? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And then trusting that. That's probably another one of the things. It's like being like, okay, no, I felt that and that was valid. And now in order for us to have a better relationship, kind of how like we tell our clients, you've got to communicate that. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, and that is such an important step of being able to talk it out with like a safe space that you have. Because even too, you can feel your emotions and get them out that way, and then be like, okay, I felt the emotion, and that's okay, and I still feel that this was a problem. And then you're right, like you can be calm, collected about it, and approach it in a way that can be really healthy. And yeah, if the person doesn't receive that, like you did your part, and hopefully it alleviates some of the burden off your shoulders at that point.
For sure. And then when I did have those more difficult conversations and they were received well, that built trust in that relationship. I felt like, okay, I could bring this to this person. I could show y'all my mistakes. I could show you where I'm struggling. And that I felt like does make me a better therapist to my clients, because I'm showing you some of I'm like, girl, I don't know about this one. And I feel comfortable doing that because I know that you value what I have to say and you value how I feel. And I feel like that's really important.
Yeah, no, definitely in those healthy relationships, because like you said, it can be hard to bring in supervision things that you think you're maybe not as good at, because I don't know myself, I'm assuming other people too, you tend to think like, oh, if I share this, like they're gonna think I'm bad. Like all of a sudden all of my strengths go out the window.
Yeah.
Whereas if we don't focus on the things we need to work on as social workers, that's also not helpful. Like I don't know, helping everyone out, even our future clients, to be able to have good conversations and stick up for your own learning.
Yeah.
What is something that you love about social work? And we've already touched on a few things, but
I love, as a whole, social work. Out of all other like therapeutic practices or other counselors, I feel like social work really looks at the system that people are in, as opposed to like, you are the problem. And really thinking of like, the system is the problem, this oppression is the problem, the isms are the problem, and you are experiencing those and having a valid reaction. And I think that really validates our client's experience, which is really important, but also the ability within social work to like do more than just clinical. I feel like social work, like if I'm like, I am tired of seeing clients, I still have the ability to go into something macro, to go into policy, to go into something different, but still supporting a community, which is something that I love. Like, I don't feel like it's a limiting degree when I get
it. Yeah, no, it is very broad, which is exciting. And I think that even like talking about the jump from school to the real world as a social worker, like we take these macro based classes like policy, and then you take like your micro, like social work with individuals, and they seem kind of separate from each other. But then maybe you felt the same thing, like actually working as a social worker, you realize how much policy limits or informs or controls what we do as micro social workers too. And it's so interconnected.
It is. How many systems, like in a college counseling center, there are systems in counseling centers, there's systems in colleges. So in that sense, some helpful, some not necessarily helpful. Um, so yeah, you really do see like, ooh, I really respect y'all macro social workers, because policy, I did well in that class, but I would not, it's not my fave. It was like, girl, I don't want to go into this.
Right.
But I really appreciate them. I really appreciate people that do that community work, because I am a person that thinks like you heal in community versus like you have to be in individual therapy to get that healing done. I feel like community really supports us, like a relational theory type of vibe, really supports the whole healing process, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the macro. I love the macro girlies.
With the community and like relational theory, how do you incorporate that whenever you're working with clients?
Talking about how their relationships have affected them, or how they show up, or how they don't show up, and why they choose to not. Like, is there a reason that you choose to not show this side of yourself to other people that you know is really important to you, but do you not feel like that values in other people's spaces? Or things like that have been really helpful, I think, because there's a lot of imposter syndrome with the 18 to 24-year-olds. So there's a lot of like, I shouldn't show this part of myself because this is how people will think. So just really talking out, where did these ideas come from? And actually, if that's something that you want to change, would you like to show more of yourself? Would you like to show up in a more authentic way? So just conversations around how relationships looked for them growing up and how they would like to show up, I think are really important, especially with imposter syndrome, because I feel like a lot of 18 to 24-year-olds are like, I don't deserve to be here. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, none of us do. What if I told you that?
Right. Drop that little tidbit.
Right. What if I told you none of us do? Like people get to like whatever age. It just doesn't and I don't think life or society teaches us that that's true. I feel like society is like, you'll get to a point in your life by 25 where it'll all be figured out and you'll be happy and you'll have a 2-car garage. And it's like
that frontal lobe develops and everything falls into place.
Everything falls into place. And it's like, I don't know about that, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of more exciting than to be, in this idea that you're settled and you've completed life. Completed at 25, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much more.
Yeah. So, no, that is so cool. And especially that young age is when a lot of people are like leaving relationships that they've had for so long and entering into new ones where it does hit of like, who am I? What am I doing
and you get to decide your friends in college more than you do in high school.
Right.
Like high school can be kind of cliquey, and then in college you're like, oh, I can make friends with different people, and like people are from different parts of the world. So
yeah, their bubbles are so different than my bubble, but somehow our bubbles are gonna mesh together and we'll figure it out. That's so cool that you get to play an empowering role in some young adults' lives. Right? Oh, yes, definitely. Even just holding space, like you got it. In your fellowship, what does a day-to-day look like?
So it really depends. I see clients. I can see for myself the most is 4 if I would choose, but usually 2 or 3 for necessary sessions. Then we have initial screenings where we screen clients to see like what they're looking for at CAPS, which is a counseling center, like what they need, things of that nature, to get an idea and match them with the therapist. Then we have seminars. So we have a whole bunch of different seminars. The one that I just did, we had about like diversity. We have like different theories. We'll have like a DBT. We'll have like how to talk about sex in therapy with clients. Like we have different seminars on how to better serve our clients essentially. And then we have hours and hours of supervision. So I get 2 supervised hours with my primary supervisor. I have a case supervisor where I get 1 hour. I have a cohort supervision where I get another hour. So there's lots of supervision, which is really, really helpful. And you can tell that they care about the learning that I'm getting, and they really do want to see us like do well. So yeah, it's supervision, seminars, sessions, initial screening, lunch.
Yes. Notes?
For sure.
On a good day?
Yeah. I try to get my notes done. I do try to get my notes done only because I'm like a baby social worker. So I'm not trying to be like, I don't want my supervisor to be like, girl, all of these are red.
Like, where are they?
Yeah. Like we have a cut, like ours change colors. So like if it's red, that means it's past the due date. So I try to get my notes in before that, but there's definitely for some sessions I'm able to do a quick little note, but there's sometimes where I'm like, I need to take a break. I need to take a break from this note. I need to
my brain needs to unpack that a little bit before
before I even type it out. Like I don't think, yeah. So notes, lots of note time.
Cool. And how do like specific clients that you see get referred to you, like from screening intake to when they're actually with you?
So at our initial screening, they ask if they have a preference for a counselor. That could be male, female, person of color, things like that. Identify as LGBTQ+, anything of that nature. And then they give us a schedule because students are super, super busy. And they give us a schedule and ask if they're willing to be taped because my sessions are taped. Then we have someone who does case assignment committee. They look at who that student is, and they look at like what the availability is for each person. And then you match them up with like their preferences and like in person or Zoom on the time. And then, yeah, that's how we get matched up, which is really, really cool. I will say a woman of color is a hot commodity. Like, I'm like, wow, okay. A lot of people are like, would like to work with a person of color or a woman of color. Especially, I think it's just working with someone with marginalized identities is really helpful. So there's, certain like nuances or cultural things that you're like, I don't have to explain that. I don't have to explain why it's a microaggression. It's a microaggression, like, so things like that. But I think it's a really cool process, which allows the client to let us know their preferences and they can feel most comfortable in this space.
Yeah. And that is important to have a safe space within your therapy room. That obviously there's always a little bit like the power differential of therapist versus client, but being able to create comfort in the ways that the college students are seeking is
For
critical.
sure.
And then after you're matched, is it like guided more by the student and like what they want to talk about, or how much do you guide like initial sessions? What does that look like getting started?
So like first sessions usually are like questions of like what brings you in, and I try to get a background. It's usually like I feel like you're the expert on your life, so I'm just gonna try to get as much information as I can to best support you. And then we're just asking a lot of questions. We go through a lot of things. We ask goals because we are a brief therapy model. I feel like most counseling centers are brief therapy. But we're not gonna, like, if somebody's like still needing support, we're not gonna be like, well, you did it, that's done. We still support them and help them. Yeah, like we have that first session where we just kind of talk about what they are looking for out of therapy. I think something that's also important is like past history with therapy, like what worked, what didn't work, what did you like, what didn't you like, things like that, to like really understand where the client is coming from and like what they're looking for.
Yeah, very cool. What advice would you have for someone who's looking to do like what you're doing, whether it's individual therapy or even like going into a fellowship?
I would say start applications early because the applications are a lot. Interviews are kind of nerve-wracking. So getting and looking at all of your options, because you have more than like one option. There's different schools that provide fellowships. VA provides fellowships, government, like different places will provide them. So really like look at all of your options. Feel confident in yourself, like in that what is it, the cover letter, like really, really like make yourself shine and really feel like you have what it takes, even if you're like, because I was like, I don't know what's going on. But we're still gonna type it up like, yes, I feel solid in this, this, and this. I think those are really important. But I think prior to that, really figure out if a fellowship is where you want to go. I felt like it was the best route for me because I didn't feel like I got that clinical experience that I was looking for in my MSW program. So figuring out if that's exactly what you want to do or if that's kind of what you want to do. And then like getting your applications in, selling yourself is really, really important. And when you get there, because my cohort has doctoral like interns. So, and they're getting their degree in psychology. And I'm like, there's like, I don't know what they know. Like, there's just, y'all are talking about testings that you've done and this, that, and that, and really trying to fight against that imposter syndrome. Like, really believe that you're there for a reason, and what you bring to the table is valid, and what you bring to the table is needed. Like, clients do need this support, and sometimes being a space that someone can just openly talk and someone listens to them, you might be the first person that they've ever experienced that with, and that is extremely important. So don't sell yourself short, I would say. Like, really, really understand the value that you bring to folks.
And I think that's something that's so common in like helping professions and social work, is that people are so scared to sell themselves, like, or like downplay what they bring to the table. And yeah, like in a cover letter, it's your job to let them know like who you are and why you are going to do great things, like where you're headed. But it can be so hard, but it's so important to find that voice. And
have someone you love read it. Have someone like you love look it over, and they'll be like, take out this maybe, take out this but, take out this possibly, take all of that out, because if they really love you and support you, They're like, oh, I know you could do that. Or I've maybe never seen you do it, but I believe you can. So
Take out the I thinks, like I think this will happen. No, this will happen.
yep. When you hire me, you know what I mean? Like already put it in. So
right. When I'm in this program.
Yep, that's what I did. I was like, when I'm there.
I just write it with the assumption I'm already in.
That's what you gotta do.
No, definitely. Who inspires you? Like either whenever you started in social work or even just like now, who are some key players?
I feel like one of the people that inspires me most, that's not necessarily in social work is my grandmother. When I think of her, my grandmother and my great grandmother and my mom, honestly, I'm very matriarchal family. And I feel like all of them were not social workers in the MSW, BSW sense, but were people in their community that other folks could go to and were a safe space for people. Like my mom is very good at just like listening. She may not give feedback, but she's very good at listening and she will hear you. And she'll sit with you. And I think I've learned that from them. So they inspire me to like keep pushing that forward and like let's add a little mental health in it. You know?
No, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then like Dope Black Social Worker on Instagram is inspiring. I'm always like, I do want to retire. The joy of social work, like I just like so many people in the Instagram community have been really, really kind to me and really like uplifted me and made me feel like, oh, I do have value. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people just in the social media space have been really supportive of like licensure and like just being there as a sounding board. So yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to find you, do you want to do a plug for your Instagram?
Sure.
I don't remember what it was for when I followed you, but I feel like I've been following you for a second. And then it was like at one point you tag a city and I was like, oh my gosh, we're close by. And I was like, we're in our journey. So I personally am a big fan of your Instagram account.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I when I would watch you be like, you're walking to work, I would be like,
you're like, is that me in the background?
I would want to be like, okay, yes, because I remember there was a coffee shop that you went to, and I was like, oh, is this coffee shop? And you're like, yes, and I was like, oh, we're in the same city.
Here we are.
When you would be like, you're walking to work, I just never feel like Atlanta's walkable. So I'm like, I love that for you. Like
the hills are not walkable. It's not drivable either, and that's the problem.
That's the thing. Like that's the gag about Atlanta. It's not drivable and it's not walkable. So what do y'all want us to do? And it's not bikeable either because
no, it's not.
The bike lanes on it, although I'll be shady sometimes. I'm like, I get so nervous when bikers are by me. I'm like, I don't want this seems dangerous. But yeah, it's none of those. But yeah, Atlanta's great. We love it here.
We do. Most days.
Yeah, most days. But my Instagram is Let's Unpack That. LETSUNPACKDAT. And I talk about a lot of baby social work life and what's going on with me. I'll probably be doing a post on my like licensure journey because like I postponed my exam and now I'm kind of like, do I want to take this? I gave him money. I gotta. I already gave him the money. So yeah, a whole bunch of things like that. A whole bunch of baby social work stuff. So come on, we're pretty cool.
Yeah,
like to have fun.
And it's so nice to have a community of social workers on
it
social
really
media.
Is.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It's so good to hear about everything you're up to and how you got there. So I really appreciate you being willing to interview and share.
Of course. Thank you for like creating this platform and creating this space and allowing other social workers to like hear about social work. I remember when I got started, I was like, I need to listen to every social work podcast because what am I getting into? And this helps.
Yes. And now people will be listening to you. It's the cycle.
Wow, full circle.